Picture this. Imagine two children waking up on the same morning. One walks into a classroom where the teacher is waiting to teach. The other walks into a classroom where the students are expected to clean the room before the lesson even begins. No janitor, no cleaner, just children holding brooms, wiping floors, organizing their desks, and taking responsibility for the space they share. At first, it looks like a simple school routine, but it represents something much deeper. Because while one system mainly asks children to learn information, the other quietly teaches them how to live. And this is where the real difference between Japanese and Western education begins. It isn't simply about grades, it isn't about intelligence, and it isn't even about discipline in the traditional sense. It's about what a child is taught to believe about responsibility. In many Japanese schools, students participate in cleaning their classrooms and common spaces. The lesson isn't just cleanliness. The hidden message is, this place belongs to all of us, and if everyone uses it, everyone shares responsibility for it. That idea may seem small, but repeated every day, small ideas can become personality. Because children don't learn only from what adults tell them. They learn from what they repeatedly experience. If a child grows up constantly being reminded to clean, organize, wait their turn, respect shared spaces, and complete responsibilities even when nobody is watching, discipline slowly becomes less about punishment. It becomes part of identity. And this is where things get interesting. In many Western educational systems, especially in the United States, schools often place greater emphasis on individual expression, creativity, participation, and personal achievement. That has enormous advantages. Children may be encouraged to ask questions, challenge ideas, express opinions, and develop their individuality. But every strength can have a hidden trade-off. When a culture strongly emphasizes individual freedom, responsibility can sometimes become more external. A teacher says, clean your desk. A parent says, finish your homework. A rule says, be on time. The child learns to respond to instructions. But Japanese education often tries to create something slightly different. The goal is not always simply, do what you are told. It can be, understand your role within the group. And that distinction matters. Because real discipline begins when nobody is forcing you. Anyone can behave well when someone is watching. The deeper question is, what do you do when nobody is watching? This is where psychology enters the picture. Human behavior is heavily shaped by repetition. The brain becomes efficient at behaviors that are practiced again and again. When a child repeatedly experiences responsibility as part of everyday life, that behavior requires less conscious effort over time. It starts feeling normal, not heroic, not painful, just normal. And this creates a powerful psychological shift. Instead of thinking, I have to do this, the mind gradually begins to think, this is what I do. That is the difference between external discipline and internal discipline. But here's the twist. Discipline isn't always about making children tougher. Sometimes it's about making responsibility feel ordinary. Imagine a student dropping something in the hallway. In one environment, someone else might immediately pick it up. In another, the student may automatically feel responsible for fixing the situation. Neither child is necessarily better. They have simply been trained by different environments to notice different things. One may be trained to protect individual freedom. The other may be trained to protect collective harmony. And this difference can follow people far beyond childhood. Because school isn't only preparing children for exams, it's quietly rehearsing adulthood. How you treat your workspace, how you respond to inconvenience, how you behave when nobody rewards you, how you handle boring responsibilities, how you treat strangers, how you respond when your personal desires conflict with the needs of a group. These behaviors don't suddenly appear at age 25. They are often rehearsed thousands of times during childhood. And this is where Japanese education offers a fascinating lesson. A child doesn't need to love every responsibility. They simply need to learn that discomfort isn't always a reason to escape. That is a powerful idea. Because modern life constantly teaches us the opposite. If something is boring, replace it. If something is difficult, avoid it. If something feels uncomfortable, distract yourself. If something takes too long, find a shortcut. Technology has made many things easier. But here's the hidden problem. When life becomes extremely convenient, our tolerance for inconvenience can become weaker. And discipline becomes difficult when the brain expects everything to be comfortable. Japanese school culture, in many cases, introduces children to small forms of discomfort through routine. Cleaning, waiting, following procedures, working collectively, repeating tasks, taking responsibility. None of these things sound extraordinary. That's exactly why they can be powerful. The lesson isn't, life should be painful. The lesson is, not everything uncomfortable is bad for you. And that distinction is incredibly important. Because resilience isn't created when life becomes easy. It develops when the mind learns, I can handle this. But there is another side to the story. Western education should not simply be dismissed as less disciplined. That would be an unfair comparison. Western educational traditions have produced enormous emphasis on creativity, independent thinking, experimentation, and questioning authority. And those qualities are incredibly valuable. A child who learns to say, why? Can eventually become an adult capable of challenging outdated systems. So perhaps the real question isn't, which system is better? The more interesting question is, what happens when we combine the strengths of both? Imagine a child who can think independently, but also understands responsibility. A child who can challenge authority, but still respects others. A child who can express emotions, but doesn't allow every emotion to control their behavior. A child who values individuality, without forgetting community. That might be the deeper lesson. Because discipline without freedom can become obedience. But freedom without discipline can become chaos. And somewhere between the two, there may be a healthier form of education. One that doesn't simply prepare children to pass exams, but prepares them to live. Because ultimately, the purpose of education isn't to create children who follow every rule. And it isn't to create children who reject every rule. It's to create human beings who understand why responsibility matters. The Japanese school system offers one fascinating reminder. Character is rarely built through one dramatic lesson. It is built through tiny actions repeated so many times that they eventually become part of who you are. The desk you clean, the promise you keep, the task you finish, the person you respect, the responsibility you accept when nobody is watching. These moments seem insignificant when they happen, but years later, they may become personality. And perhaps that's the discipline difference we rarely notice. Some lessons are written in textbooks, others are written into behavior, and the second kind may stay with us for life. So the next time you see a child doing something ordinary, cleaning a room, waiting patiently, helping someone, finishing a boring task, look a little closer, because beneath that small behavior, a much bigger lesson may be forming. Not just about school, not just about discipline, but about the kind of person that child is slowly becoming. And maybe that is what education has always been about. Not simply teaching children what to know, but quietly teaching them who they can become.